I cannot believe this has to be my first post of 2020. But here we are. Hello everyone, it's Paola, and today we are going to talk about how diversity in publishing is not a trend. Yesterday, January 10th, on Twitter, somebody said that they didn't want diverse books to be bad ripoffs of white books. They thought that diversity was a marketing trend, a marketing strategy in the publishing industry, and I'm not here for it. I don't see how anyone could be here for that kind of narrative, especially because the narrative is completely false. To begin, I would like to start off with the comment that inspired this discussion, this informative video, what have you. I'm not going to name the person that posted this comment, and I am also not going to name the booktuber on whose channel this comment was posted. This is not supposed to be slander, this is not supposed to be shade, this is just an informative discussion video about how diversity is not a trend. So let's get started. I want diverse books to be as good as the other ones. See, that's why I've been thinking for about 2 years when people started recommending books based on the hype alone instead of the actual content. What pisses me off too is that publishers think they can give us the same books since 2010s with a new world with more diversity, and that we won't say shit and be happy with that. It pisses me off. I don't care about reading the new and hot Asian version of Shadow and Bone. I read Shadow and Bone. I don't need to read a diverse ripoff that's just published to make money. Give us real books with real imaginative stories. Don't buy into this diversity marketing formula. I mean, there's a lot to unpack here. First of all, I want to give you some statistics that I found on a Bustle article, and then we can talk about something else that there is to unpack here. The name of the article where I got this information is called 7 Statistics About Diversity in Book Publishing That Reveal the Magnitude of the Problem by Kerry Jarema for Bustle in June 2019. The article acknowledges that publishing has in fact gotten better when it pertains to publishing more books by people of color, and these all started and got even better with the launch of the campaign called We Need Diverse Books that began in 2014. However, the publishing industry is still falling short, especially because it's not just about what books are getting published, but also who is writing the books, who's reading the books, and who's getting awarded for the diverse books that have been published. Point number 1 in the Bustle article that I read is that women, especially women of color, don't win the Pulitzer or Nobel Prize as often as white men. Only 30 women have won the Pulitzer Prize since its inception in 1917, and only 3 have been women of color. One is Alice Walker, another one is Toni Morrison, and the third one is Jhumpa Lahiri. And to make matters even worse, only 14 women have been awarded the Nobel Prize for Literature since 1901. Point number 2 is that in 2018, more children's books featured an animal as a main character than any person of color. The statistic goes as follows. 50% of the main characters in children's books published in 2018 were white, 27% were animals, 10% were African or African American, 7% were Asian Pacific Islander or Asian Pacific American, 5% were Latinx, and only 1% were Native American. So you see, we already see the staggering difference between white main characters and white authors publishing about white characters than we see any person of color featured in a children's book. So as you can see, it's not really a trend. If it were a trend, we would see the statistic going out more evenly, or the statistic would be even higher for people of color than it would be for white people or animals, but it's not. Point number 3 in the Bustle article mentions that queer literature for kids and teens account for a very small portion of the overall industry. Out of 3,700 books, only 136 were queer books or contained significant queer content. And only 56 of those 136 books were written by authors who identified as queer. Point number 4 in the article is that white authors account for the vast majority of published romance books. The statistic in the Bustle article says that for every 100 books published in 2018, only 7.7% were written by people of color. Now I'm going to show you statistics that the RIP bodies brought to the table. It's called "What percentage of books published in 2018 were written by people of color?" As you can see, the percentages are super small. We can see that Bethany House has 0%, Bold Strokes has 1.1%, and the highest one is Kensington with only 22.8%. This is not something to be proud of. This is not something that we should applaud for Kensington books, because even though, yes, they are the highest percentage of books published by people of color, the number is still super low. I mean, almost 80% of the books published in 2018 by Kensington Books were by white people. That difference is just staggering to me. I fail to understand why people think that it's trendy to publish diverse books when the reality is that if it were a trend, the numbers would be much higher. Point number 5 in the Bustle article goes as follows. People working at book publishers are mostly white. The most recent study was in 2015 and it was by Lee and Lowe, and they determined that 79% of the people who work in the book publishing industry, this includes executives, sales, marketing, publicity, and reviewers, are white. Reviewers. This means that more books by people of color, if any, are going towards reviewers that are white as opposed to reviewers that are people of color. Let that sink in for a minute. And overall, the industry is also 89% heterosexual, 96% abled, and 99% cisgender. These are statistics from the most recent study held in 2015. As soon as we get new statistics, I'm making a video to, compare and contrast if it's in fact gotten better, because something tells me that if it has gotten better, it's only by like this much, just this much. Point number 6 is that major literary publications don't feature as many women or non-binary reviewers as they do men. This means again that more men get to publish their thoughts about the books that they read, no matter what book it is that they read, than women and non-binary reviewers. Finally, point number 7, that white people read more books than other demographics, and it is up to the publishing industry to change that. The study on which this statistic is based on is also from 2015. This one is by Pew Research Center, and it determines that the average American person reads about 12 books a year, with white people reading 13 books a year, and Hispanic and Black people reading only 8 books per year. And just a little fun fact that I found in an article for The Guardian, I will leave both links to the articles down below so that you can check it out for yourself as well. But the fun fact goes that in the UK, according to a survey of 6,432 people working for 42 organizations in the United Kingdom, only 11.6% identify as BAME. BAME stands as Black, Asian, or Minority Ethnic. So you see, like, the difference is way too big. Like, there's a whole freaking abyss standing between diverse people working for the publishing industry, whether that be authors, executive, sales, marketing, publicity. So once again, I fail to understand how anyone could be thinking that diversity is trendy or becoming a trend when the numbers are not lying. The numbers are way too small. Let's unpack the I don't care about reading the new and hot Asian version of Shadow and Bone. I read Shadow and Bone. I don't need to read a diverse ripoff that's just published to make money. I'm going to be 110% honest with you right now. I have never read Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo, and I have not read The Gilded Wolves by Roshani Chokshi, which is the book that they are referring to as the diverse ripoff of the original Shadow and Bone. But I have seen people talking about it on Twitter, on BookTube, and pretty much everywhere I turn where people talk about books, people have been saying that just because Shadow and Bone and The Gilded Wolves include a heist as a part of the, I guess, the driving force of the books, doesn't mean that they are completely the same. I am going to go ahead and link down below some reviews that have in fact compared and contrasted The Gilded Wolves and Shadow and Bones. Point number 2 that I want to address after this segment of the entire comment is that Leigh Bardugo doesn't own the rights of heist books. Just because she wrote the first heist book you ever read doesn't mean, 1, it's the only heist book out there. Number 2, doesn't mean that it has to be the only heist book anyone ever reads. That doesn't mean that the other one is a ripoff. There are tropes and archetypes for a reason, and authors use it to their own benefit pretty much to make the story interesting, to drive the plot forward. And it's okay if you prefer to read Shadow and Bone over The Gilded Wolves, but why do you have to go ahead and compare them for more than it is worth? Just because one is a heist book and the other one is too, doesn't mean that it's a pretty much a pirate copy of Shadow and Bone. I mean, are you going around saying that every single YA book featuring a love triangle is a ripoff of the other, and the other, and the other, and the other? Or are you just saving that for the diverse reads? Because it's just baffling to me how it has never been a problem for many people, and then when people of color start publishing books and people of color start featuring their own identities into these books, it's like diverse ripoff, diversity for the sake of diversity. It's not true. Diversity is out there in the world. Diversity is just how the world works. It's reality. So when people say that it's just like a diverse ripoff slash that it includes diversity for the sake of diversity, it's false. Diversity exists in the world. It's reality. It doesn't have to exist to drive the plot forward. And the third point that I want to talk about is a diverse ripoff that's just published to make money. All books are published to make money. Whether they're good, bad, mediocre, that's up to the reviewers. But I mean, just published to make money. All books are published to make money. Alright, so that's the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. Again, this is not meant to be shade. I just felt like making a video about how diversity is not a trend because I thought we had talked about it enough in previous years, but somehow people are still missing the mark. Diversity is not a trend, not at all, not in the slightest. If you haven't already and you'd like to, go ahead and hit subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!